I want you to get ready to embark on a transformative journey where there's no more suffering in silence, no more conforming to outdated societal norms. This is the podcast where we dare to crush those societal expectations and embrace the realities of pregnancy and parenthood with one honest conversation at a time. It's time for us to rise above the shadows and ignite a movement towards a happier, more fulfilled world for every parent and child. If that's you and you're ready to challenge the status quo and embark on this incredible journey with me, then I'd like to welcome you to the Birth Junkie podcast. Welcome back to my neck of the woods in the Birth Junkie podcast. So I have to preface this episode with, I'm pretty sure I'm sick. All the kids have been sick. So if my voice sounds a little funky, I have coffee over here, some hot coffee to help, but it might not always help. So if I pause to take a drink, you know why. Okay. So I just kind of wanted to do a few things here. So I've been going back and forth with these poor kids that have been sick. And one of the things that I have really had to focus on or come back to as a mom is advocacy. And I know I've talked about this in a previous episode, and I've kind of sprinkled this throughout episodes that I've talked with guests on. But advocacy in, pregnancy is really important, of course. But once you have your kids, you actually don't stop advocating because, not only could you be having to advocate for yourself, but now, because your kids don't have, their own voice yet, especially depending on how young they are, you have to be their advocate. And I've had to do this a lot in the past. Let's see, we're going on almost 6 weeks now. So I'll start from the beginning. I think it was Leia. So Leia's 3. She started coughing and, it was like a very deep cough and, it's change of seasons. So we thought it was just allergies. And then Luke started with a cough and he's 1, and we were like, okay, well, it's got to be the allergies. And, I have allergies pretty bad, especially when it's like windy and flowers are blooming and all that stuff. So we just chalked it up to that. And then, we're coming up on week 2 and then week 3. And I was like, you know what? This feels like it's more than just allergies. Like just the way that they sound and the way that they are, just they weren't they still were like happy and jumping around and, all that good stuff. But they just didn't seem like their true selves. So I was like, it's more. There's something more going on that I can't see. Their body is taking on something and it's fighting it. And so I ended up in which, I don't hate doctors, that's a strong word, but I just have had very bad experiences with doctors and not feeling heard, and not feeling like my choice or voice mattered when deciding things for not only myself, but for my children. So I'm always reluctant to go unless I actually feel like a medical intervention is needed, such as antibiotics or, something to that effect, something stronger. So I made an appointment to go. And I took Luke because he sounded the worst. Like his cough was super deep and you could hear his breathing with every breath he took. It sounded like this rattling, just this horrible, wet rattling with every breath he took. And it sounded horrible. So anyways, I took him first and the doctor's like, oh, it's just allergies. And here's citrazine, which is an allergy medication. Just give it to him and he'll be fine. And, I would ask questions to them and, ask what are the side effects? What would this actually help? And, how long would they need to be on this? Would it, need to be a lifetime thing? Like, what are your expectations for this medication for him? Because I don't like it when they just throw the medication at me and they're like, okay, take this, goodbye. And I'm like, okay, like that was not helpful. um, and so anyways, she was saying, it just depends, you could try it and see if it works. We'll try a week and then, you can come back in. And I was just like, that didn't sit well with me. So, I agreed and just left. And of course, I always research what the medication is and the effects on the baby. And to me, it was not worth it to even try, especially because I felt like it was more than just allergies. So I did not even go pick up the prescription from the pharmacy. I just left it there and then took Leia to the doctor. And, it was the same thing, allergies, citrazine, and goodbye. So I didn't get the medication at all. I did not get the allergy medication. I decided against it because I did not feel like it was allergies and I did not want to just throw spaghetti at the wall. These are my children. These are real bodies. This is their health. And I don't want to mess up their natural biology for fighting off, a disease or sickness because I'm throwing this medication that their body now has to metabolize. So I decided against it. And, it was like another week and they were like, oh, bring them back in, we'll check for something else. And because I told them it's more than just allergies, I feel it. Like I know it's more than just allergies. And so they, reluctantly agreed and we went in there and I took Luke again first and they were just like, I'm really sure it's allergies. And I told them, I'm really sure it's not. I know my child. I'm with my child 24/7. I know them. And this is not just allergies. I know allergies. I've had allergies my entire life. Like, this is more. And they said, well, sometimes allergies just present themselves different in children and they can have different reactions. And I said, I totally understand that, but I know my kids and I just have this gut feeling that there's something more. And they said, well, I don't know what to tell you. And I said, I want you to test them for whooping cough. And because I actually had whooping cough when I was pregnant with Leia, because my poor little nephew, he had whooping cough when he was 3 months old. And I actually had watched him. And we didn't know it was whooping cough that he had at the time. And I was pregnant and I contracted it as well. So I knew the symptoms. I knew the symptoms. I knew, kind of what it was about. And to me, this felt like the same thing. And of course, there's a million and one things out there, so we never 100% know. But this is what I felt like it was. So, anyways, I had them test him for whooping cough, which is also known as pertussis. So, um, Leia, same thing. I brought her into the doctor, and they're like, "Oh, you didn't start citrazine," and I was like, "No, I'm not going to, because I don't feel like it's allergies. I feel like it's more." And I told them, the other doctor tested Luke for pertussis. So, maybe you can test her for pertussis too. And they're like, I don't think it is. So they wouldn't test her. And they're like, let's just see if Brothers comes back positive and then we'll see. We'll take it from there. And I was like, okay. And at this point, I was just annoyed. I wanted to get out of there. We had already been there for 2 hours because, every time we go, it takes us we're there for 2 hours to 3 hours, and it sucks. So by the time the doctor gets there, I'm done. I've already been having the kids with me. They hate being at the doctor, they're all over the place. They just want to play, and then they start getting they're tired of being there. So they're crying, they're upset, they're hungry, even though I always bring snacks and water and whatever, little toys, but they're done. They don't want to be there anymore. So anyways, by the time the doctor gets there, I'm done. And then, when we're even in the office, by the time the doctor does come into the room, she's there for, we've already been there an hour and a half, and she's in and out of our room within 5 minutes, if that. If that. It's insane. So, I was just like, let's get out of here, and so I would call every day after Luke's pertussis test to be like, hey, we get the results. Oh, I forgot. They ordered an x-ray for Leia because her lungs were sounding really bad at that point. So they didn't want to do the pertussis test, but she said, let's try an x-ray, let's take a look at her lungs. So I'm sorry, let me go back. And then so after that appointment, we actually left right away to go to get her x-ray, because she sounded bad too. Like with every breath, you could hear the rattling and squeaking noises that are coming from her lungs. So we did the x-ray, which was actually really fast. We were in and out of there within like 10 minutes, and which was super nice, and everybody was super nice. And um, anyways, so after that, then I would call every day every single day to try to get the results of the x-ray and the pertussis test. Um, and you want to know how long it took before we got results for either test? 1 week. 1 freaking week. Now, when we went and got the x-ray, the guy told us, the technician, he said, okay, the doctor should have the results within a few hours, so you should be able to have the results the next day. So I was like, okay, cool. Um, I have to drink my coffee. So, I was calling, and I'm that bugaboo mom because I want to make sure my children are getting the proper treatment, and especially because they were not sleeping through the night. Like they were waking up, coughing, crying, and just miserable. And I knew that they needed something more. And, when you go through the doctor, you have to go through the quote unquote proper channels, get this test, get that test, and then, we'll make a plan of action. Then you have to make an appointment, and then we'll make a plan of action. And then you can come back, and then we can do blah, 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 blah. So, it takes a while. Um, so it took a week to get the x-ray results, and she was like, it kind of looks like pneumonia. There is some swelling in there, I'm not sure. And I was just like, oh my gosh, these people are freaking idiots. I was so annoyed because I'm like, oh my gosh, I felt like a crazy person because the kids are sick, and on top of all that, I mean, I'm still working these overnight graveyard 12-hour shifts, and it's exhausting. I'm still working on my doula business. I've been working on my birth education course. So it's a lot. It's a lot. And I'm still doing in-person stuff with my doula clients. I'm doing in-person birth education. I'm doing, consults and prenatals. And I'm pulled in so many directions, and that doesn't even include like the typical everyday house stuff. That doesn't include cooking, cleaning, and, making sure the kids don't have too much screen time, making sure the kids get outside to play, and making sure that we're having quality time. And, there's so many different aspects to life in general, and it's hard to try to balance or integrate everything, especially when you have sick kids and you have a provider that you're reluctant to go to in the first place. And then they are dismissing all of your claims, making you feel like you're an idiot, and trying to back you into a corner, or you feel like you're being backed into a corner anyway. Before Luke's pertussis test came back, we had another appointment, and I was like, look, I just need the results. We need a plan of action. And so I brought both the kids in, and the doctor listened to both of their lungs, and she's like, okay, I really think it's pneumonia. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. So anyways, they decided that they had bacterial pneumonia. So with bacterial pneumonia, they suggest that you take antibiotics. So I reluctantly agreed. I try not to give them antibiotics ever, because I don't want them to build a resistance to it when they actually need it. And Side note, since Luke has his renal reflux, so his kidneys, I don't know if I've even talked about this on here, but both of his kidneys have reflux. So what that means is his kidneys, the urine backs up. So it doesn't completely drain, it backs up, which, is not a good thing. It's supposed to go the other way. So one of the things the doctor suggested that he do for this so that he doesn't get another urinary tract infection. That's how we first found this. He got a urinary tract infection when he was 10 weeks old. So maybe I'll dive deeper into this later. So they suggested he take antibiotics from then until the rest of time, I'm guessing. I don't even know. They've never specified. And I told them I was, and I did for like a week, but I decided, why am I doing this? Like, he's going to be taking antibiotics for the rest of his life. No, that's not good for him. So I stopped and I said, you know what? I'm going to take care of him to the best of my ability. And, we're just going to put our faith in the fact that he'll be fine. Because I don't want him to be on antibiotics every single day for the rest of his life, unless it's absolutely necessary, but I don't feel like it is. Anyways, so that was just a side note. I only give them antibiotics if I feel like they truly, truly need it, because I don't want them to build up that resistance to them if they actually need it. And so, anyways, we started the amoxicillin for actually both of them, which that's the antibiotic that they prescribed for their bacterial pneumonia that they had. So started them on that, and day 6 of Luke taking it, he was the first one to start. I got the call from the doctor saying his pertussis test came back positive, so he does have whooping cough. So I'm like, okay. And during this time, he had developed like also these little bumps, and then he was always like grabbing at his mouth. And I was like, what is going on? Like, there's so many things happening right now. I don't even know what to do. Um, except for follow my intuition as best I can. And so, they called. And so anyway, I made an appointment to take him in. Well, no, okay. I made an appointment before the positive test for him. And so they had actually said that they thought he had hand, foot, and mouth disease. Oh my gosh. I'm like, okay, this is great. Oh man. After that diagnosis, I was like, okay, well, they obviously both have it, because I had noticed red sores in the roofs of their mouth and the back of their throat, as well as little bumps on like their arms and leg area. Now, I Googled what hand, foot, and mouth disease looks like. It doesn't look anything like the pictures that I saw on there, what they have. But that's what they said they have. And, I mean, I guess. I guess they all get it in different ways. But, oh, and we had also gotten a diagnosis before the hand, foot, and mouth of strep throat. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, what is it? Like, what? Can we decide? Can we do a test? I don't know. Seemed like they were just trying to throw spaghetti at a wall and see what stuck because, oh my gosh, so many diagnoses. So, anyways, okay, going back to he tested positive for pertussis. And at this point, I was pissed because I was like, it took a whole week and 6 days of him being on this unnecessary antibiotic because it was whooping cough. I'm thinking not pneumonia, or maybe it was whooping cough and turned into pneumonia, because that can happen. So, okay, so by this point where we're finding out that it's whooping cough, we are 6 weeks. Oh no, I'm sorry, 5 weeks into them coughing and being sick. And so I'm just like exhausted. To be honest, I'm exhausted. And so, yeah, they said it was whooping cough. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna take them to the ER. I'm just gonna go make sure they get a full respiratory panel done because my mom's a respiratory therapist and she had suggested it. And I just wanted to make sure all the bases were covered because I feel like they were throwing us so many different diagnoses that I was like, do they even know what they're talking about? But at this point, just because I just felt like I was at a loss. And so, anyways, I ended up taking them to the ER. And, they took them in actually right away. This is the quickest ER visit I've ever had, which I was so grateful for because I took both little ones with me and was by myself with them. So I was like, please, please be good. Um, so anyways, we got there and like the ER, they did all the tests and they said like they still have, a lot of like inflammation and stuff in their chest. But they felt like it was the whooping cough and they definitely had hand, foot, and mouth disease. And they could have had pneumonia because of the whooping cough. So they did have all of these things. And I did feel, like more comfortable and confident with that diagnosis after going to the hospital because when I was talking to the doctors, they were like, I don't know, or like they just felt very unsure, and they weren't looking at my kid's body as a whole. They were just kind of like pinpointing things, and and I realize that like a doctor is not a know all be all. They're human too. I understand that, but instead of just being like, I don't know, I felt like it would have been more beneficial for me if they would have just been like, I'm not sure. Let me find out. Or let me talk to my colleague. Or how about we do this? But it was never that. It was like, no, it's not this. Or I don't, and I was like, okay. Like, how do you have confidence in somebody that is not willing to do some do some research or dive a little deeper into it for you. How? And if they're just going to sit there and act like they know it all or be like, I don't know, or say they do know, but not seem sure of themselves. That doesn't give me confidence in them. You know what I mean? And, like I said, I don't put all of that onto the doctors. I really try not to because I'm the parent. Overall, I'm the parent. And I know my kids better than anybody does. And that's one of the big reasons why I continued to advocate for them to figure out what was happening because it just didn't sit right with me. And, you know, uh, of course, I try to stay away from the medical model, but I'm not opposed to use it if I feel like it's going to give me peace of mind or, it's going to be beneficial for my babies. And also, when we did go to the hospital, they did prescribe a nebulizer, which is like an albuterol aerosol. Um, it's to help, you know, open up the airways just because there's so much swelling, especially in Luke's lungs. And he does have a little issues with like breathing fully. And sometimes he breathes a little fast because he's trying to breathe well. And, when you have swelling in those airways, your airways are like tubes. So if there's swelling in them, those tubes become smaller. So then it's harder to breathe. So, anyway, we're going to try that. We haven't tried it yet. We tried the albuterol inhaler. Um, but it's hard to do an inhaler on a baby without them trying to run away from you. So we are going to try the nebulizer and we'll see if it helps him. But, in the meantime, we're just dealing with this. And then yesterday, so today is actually Wednesday when I'm recording this. I'm so behind, like on my business stuff. Like I normally have an episode recorded like a week in advance at least. But this has been a crazy week, and I've had to cancel, like, some interviews, podcast interviews that I had, which I feel really bad about having to postpone, but, your family comes first. And, yeah, I'm just taking it as it comes, and I'm trying to really give myself grace because it's a lot. It's a lot to be a parent and to be the one that's responsible for making sure that your children are getting the best care and making sure that your children are heard when they don't necessarily have that big voice yet. And so, like I said, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. Of course, I went in depth about it, but advocacy is so important. Like in your pregnancy, it's so important to practice that because once your babies come out, you will never stop advocating for them, especially when they're little and they don't have their big voice yet, or they don't have any voice yet, because nobody is going to look at your children with their best interest like you will. Nobody is. Nobody, of course, they want to try to help, but you are the ultimate person who is going to advocate for them the best and the most because they're your kids, you want to see the best outcome for them no matter what. So, anyways, advocacy is so important. And I urge you to practice it now. And even if you're done having kids and you're in your postpartum season, continue practicing it because it can be hard when you're in the face of a doctor. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm here as a mom of almost 20 years. My oldest is 18. And it's taken a long time for me to find that voice, to advocate for them. But it's so important because if you don't, who will? And, I'm not saying that I'm the sole advocate for my children because of obviously I have a partner, I have a husband, and he can do that too. But, he works during the week. And so I'm the one who's here. I'm the one who takes them to appointments. I'm the one that has to do all the things in that way, unless he takes off work. But if I feel like I can handle it, I'm never going to ask him to take off work. But, anyways, so practice, 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 practice. Like, I cannot preach that enough. And so, another thing I wanted to talk about is advocacy and how that relates to birth. So I have created a birth education course and I have been like recording videos this past couple weeks to, put it into this course program. And oh my gosh, so since I've been recording it, it's like reminded me of why I even started this. Because sometimes when you're in the thick of it, you're like overwhelmed, beyond belief. And you kind of forget your why. And as I've been recording this course, it brought me back to my pregnancy and it brought me back to planning for my VBAC. And it reminded me that I have a purpose. And my purpose here is to help spread the word of advocacy and autonomy and taking radical responsibility for your choices and your birth and postpartum, because everything that you learn in birth is going to roll into your postpartum. It doesn't stop when you give birth to your baby. It's just a new journey that begins. And I've included so much in this birth education course. It is so extensive. And since I've been recording it, I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. Like, it is so good. And it is worth like its weight in gold, honestly. Like, I wish that I had a laid out plan that was exactly like this when I was pregnant. Because when I was pregnant, I was just searching. I was Googling and researching and reading all these articles, like I did the work, like I did the footwork, like I was in it. And I would research for hours, like hours a day, every day. And, it was hard because I was all over the place because I was just trying to figure it out. And so, anyways, I wanted to talk about just hit on the birth education course that I've created, and I've called it Sacred Birth Academy. And the reason I named it that is because I feel like everything entailing birth is sacred. This is such a sacred journey that we are blessed to go on. No two journeys will be the same. They will all be different. And the way that this childbirth course is tailored is to do that, to make sure that you are making the choices that feel right to you. Everything I say in this course or teach is to help you hone in on your personal autonomy and helping you realize that you can make informed decisions and helping you realize that you have a choice and that even though your doctor says you should, that doesn't mean you need to, because ultimately you are the one who's able to make that choice. This course is super jam-packed, so it's like 8+ hours of content, but all the videos are done in bite-sized videos. So the videos range from 5 minutes to about 30 minutes. And almost every video comes with like a PDF download or worksheet. It comes with like questions that you can ask your provider. It comes with scripts that you can practice how to be your advocate. You can practice that. It helps you. I also have worksheets that will help you break down your birth biases so that you can work through them and your fears, fear clearing worksheets and meditations. And there's so much. This is so jam packed. And right now, I'm still, since I've been going through all this craziness, I was going to end the sale, but I'm extending the sale into July, and instead of $297, I'm selling it for $149. So that's 50% off. And so it's worth way more than that, to be honest. It also comes with a Facebook group, so there will be a Facebook community, and I'm so excited about it because I want to connect with all these moms. I want to connect with you. And so we can talk about all the things that you have questions about or dive deeper into your birth biases or your birth fears or whatever it may be. Okay, so I just wanted to hit on that because I haven't talked about it much with all the craziness going on. But I just wanted to give that little like life update, I guess you could call it. Um, and yeah, because I haven't really talked about that much on here. So anyways, thanks for sticking around. Also do want to talk about one of my sponsors. They are called This Is Needed. It's a prenatal vitamin company, but they don't just have prenatal vitamins. They have collagen. They have fertility pills that help with your egg quality. And they also have vitamins for men. So it's really cool. They also have it for the fourth trimester, which is postpartum. They have electrolytes. Oh my gosh, so amazing and so tasty. It comes in powder form and pill form for the prenatal vitamins. So you can like mix it into your oatmeal if you need to, if you can't handle taking pills, because I know a lot of times prenatals can like make you feel sick when you're in the first trimester or whenever. So anyways, I just want to plug that in because if you put in birthing come true, then you get 20% off. Anywho, that is all from me today. If you have any questions or just want to chat, please go ahead and hit me up on Instagram, send me a DM. Let me know what you thought about this episode. If you kind of like to dive into my life a little bit more, or if you just enjoy keeping it to strictly birth and yes. All right. Now, if you could also leave me a review, I would love that. And when you leave a review, that actually puts the podcast at a bigger chance for others being able to find it. I would love it if you would leave a review. That people text me reviews, and oh my gosh, it's so sweet. It makes my heart so happy. All right. Well, anywho, I will see you next time. But in the meantime, if you need me, I am here for you. All right. Until next time. Bye-bye.